Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second installation of the cyber security webinars that we're running on behalf of the Black Country Chamber of Commerce. And in this webinar, we're going to discuss the importance of malware protection and patch management. So these are a couple of key strategies for keeping your business secure and helping you to achieve Cyber Essentials certification. So an introduction to our speakers. So me, Matt Yarrington, I'm the owner of BlissTech Solutions. My background is I've worked in IT for over 30 years, and 15 of those years were spent as a cybersecurity consultant working all over the world for some of the world's largest companies. So that's what I did before setting up BlissTech Solutions. Zishan, do you want to give yourself a brief introduction?
Hi there. Thank you for joining us. I'm Zishan Parvez. I'm Professor of Cybersecurity at University of Wolverhampton, and I'm also the Director of Cyber Resilience and Artificial Intelligence Research Center. I have an experience of over 10 years working with academia and 5+ years of working with the industry in range of places, from starting from software development all the way towards technical leads for cloud deployment. And happy to join and share our details about the cybersecurity webinar. Yeah, Matt.
Thank you. Okay, so slides aren't moving forward. Okay, so the agenda for today is we're going to discuss patch management. So we're going to discuss what is patch management and why it's important. Talk about vulnerabilities and how to get those basics right, and then more advanced patch management strategies, and then how that fits in with Cyber Essentials. And then secondly, we're going to talk about malware protection. The importance of malware protection, free versus paid protection, and then consumer versus enterprise grade protection. We're going to discuss that, why antivirus or malware protection on it alone isn't enough anymore, and then talk about something called application allow listing, and then where that all fits in with the Cyber Essentials certification. Okay, so let's move on and start with patch management. So why is patch management important? Well, you might be asking, what is patch management? What's a patch? So essentially, a patch is a software update. It's a kind of technical term that we use. I don't know where it came from. I guess putting a patch over something to fix it. But essentially, it is a software update, and it's designed to fix software vulnerabilities. So all software has vulnerabilities, and every month loads of vulnerabilities are discovered across all different types of computer systems, from servers to endpoints, that's desktops and laptops, mobile devices, and also network equipment like firewalls and switches. Everything that runs some form of software will have vulnerabilities at some point. And it's these vulnerabilities that hackers try and exploit. What we term in the industry malicious actors. They try and exploit them to gain unauthorized access to systems and data. So generally every month, a vendor will release patches and updates. So the famous one in our industry is what's known as Patch Tuesday, where it started by Microsoft. The second Tuesday of every month, they will release their updates for their software to fix security vulnerabilities. And a lot of other vendors are now sort of in line with that and releasing those updates. So the impact of not updating, the impact of not managing your patching life cycle. So if software has known vulnerabilities and isn't updated promptly, it leaves your systems open to attack. Because the vendors on a monthly basis release this information about security vulnerabilities that they've detected, then the malicious actors also know about these vulnerabilities, and then it's an arms race. So they will be trying to exploit these vulnerabilities before people get around to patching them. So that's why it's important that as soon as you're aware of the security updates being available, that they should be applied. If you don't apply them, then it leaves your systems open to attack or to be more easily attacked, and that can result in data breaches, organizational reputation loss, financial loss. there's a statistic I read the other day that 60% of small businesses don't recover or go out of business within 6 months of having a cyber attack. So it's important to sort of keep these things up to date. So touched on this briefly earlier. So what is a vulnerability? So it's a security flaw in the software. And these can be exploited by hackers to compromise systems. Every piece of software out there has vulnerabilities. It's just a case of whether they're known or not. And then once a vulnerability is discovered, the attackers will act quickly, try and exploit them before people patch, as I mentioned earlier. So the vendors will update their also release software updates to fix these known vulnerabilities. And so it's important to keep on top of that. We also have something you may have heard of called zero-day vulnerabilities. So this is a security flaw that hasn't been detected by the vendor, yet hackers know about it. Basically, it's a vulnerability that's been found by malicious actors, and yet the software vendors aren't yet aware that it exists. So there is no patch available for it. And these are particularly dangerous because as there's no fix, it's under the radar. The software vendor doesn't know anything about it, and neither does anybody else apart from the hackers for that matter. Then that's obviously going to be a big issue. And this is where the previous webinar that we discussed in Defense in Depth does provide some mitigations against those zero-day vulnerabilities, because if you have layers of defense, then if one thing isn't detected or the software isn't, can't be updated, you may pick it up elsewhere and block access. So the basics that you need to do to ensure that your software is kept up to date. Always make sure that you are using properly licensed and supported software. Now, it still happens today. It used to be more popular years ago, but I do know it still happens. People download software, cracked software from the internet that doesn't have a proper support contract and can't be updated. And equally, if you're running an operating system or a piece of software that is no longer supported by the vendor, it's not going to receive security updates. So one thing you might have heard about recently is that in October of 2025, Windows 10 will stop receiving security updates. So basically from October this year, Windows 10 will not receive any further security updates, and therefore the longer that's left, the riskier it becomes, because any problems with the operating system won't be fixed. So it's important to move to Windows 11 before October. Equally, if you're running an old Mac system, Apple stops you downloading the latest operating system on certain versions of the hardware. So over time, again, you'd be running a piece of software that is no longer supported. So it's important to keep on top of that. If you do have any unsupported software from on your systems, so remove it from the devices to minimize that security risk. Also remove any software that's not used or not needed. Part of Cyber Essentials does say that any unrequired application should be uninstalled from devices, so it just minimizes that risk. And then also enable automatic updates. So where an application supports it, if you just turn on the automatic update feature, it will download that update and let you know when it's available. So the majority of sort of commonly used software like Chrome, Microsoft Edge, Adobe Acrobat, and others have automatic update features. So if that's turned on and you actually choose to do the update when it prompts you, then that makes sure that you're keeping on top of those software updates. So some of the more advanced features that can be used to understand and reduce the risk around patch management is to use specialized software. So patch management software, it will generally uses agents that are installed across your computers and servers and so on. And this will make sure that the software on those devices is kept up to date. It will periodically check the sort of latest versions that are available, and then keep your software up to date. And there are a variety of different solutions out there. If you work with an IT service provider, they will use some software called RMM, Remote Management and Monitoring, and that software can do the patch management for you. So if you're outsourcing your IT, then your IT service provider should be taking care of all of that for you. If you're not, if you do it in-house, then you can purchase your own patch management software and manage that internally. The second advanced piece of software that you can use is vulnerability management software. So this will scan all the devices within your environment and then report upon those vulnerabilities. Essentially, it builds a database of all of the systems that are connected to your network and to your organization, and it will identify any vulnerabilities that they have. So essentially what it does is it tests that whether a vulnerability exists or not. And if it does, it will catalog it, and then it will produce a report that shows you your risk across the organization. And then you can choose to identify and classify the vulnerabilities within your organization and fix the most critical ones first. And the third piece of software that you can use with this is asset management software. So having a track of all of the assets, and that's not just hardware assets, that software is an asset as well, will help you identify what you have within your organization, and identify any issues that you may have, and give you visibility about the systems that need to be kept up to date and when. The other thing to sort of point out with the vulnerability management side of things is that there is something called the CVSS scoring. So this is a scoring that's given to every vulnerability that's identified, and it's based upon from a low number, or it starts at 0, but you never see one with 0, and it goes all the way up to 10. Anything from 7 and above is considered high, and anything from, I think it's 8.9 or above is considered critical. So understanding the vulnerabilities that you have within your organization can help you classify, and prioritize those updates. And an example of a critical vulnerability would be one that's, it's easy to exploit. It doesn't take a lot, and it will give the attacker a very high level of access. So you can kind of rate your risk based upon that. So having an understanding of those things is very useful. So how does all of this fit into Cyber Essentials? So Cyber Essentials basically says about patch management that all of your software that is in scope. So when you do a Cyber Essentials certification, you specify the scope. Generally, it's the entire organization, but it doesn't have to be. So all the software and devices that are in scope must be licensed and supported, so it gets updates. Removed from devices when it becomes unsupported or no longer needed. An important thing to point out here is if you work in an industry that uses software that can't be updated, let's say, it was written ages ago, it performs critical functions within your organization, but it can't be updated. In those situations, what you would have to do is segregate that piece of equipment that runs that software so it can't connect to the internet. So that's an important part of Cyber Essentials, and also keeping your environment secure. If you're running an old Windows 7 desktop that runs a particular piece of software that runs a machine and you can't do without it, that's fine. There's not a lot you can do about it, but you should basically isolate that computer, make sure it can't connect to the internet, and then have a plan to replace that piece of software. Something else that Cyber Essentials mandates is that automatic updates should be turned on where possible. Alternatively, if you're using patch management software, that is an alternative to having those automatic updates on, so you can control when those updates get pushed out. And then all high and critical vulnerabilities need to be fixed within 14 days of that patch being released. So in the example of Patch Tuesday, the second Tuesday of every month, the software or the patches need to be deployed by the fourth Tuesday of every month, just to make sure that you're minimizing that exposure. So, going to move on now to malware protection. So, I mean, I think everybody's aware of malware, or what we used to call viruses. Malware basically means a piece of malicious software. And there are over 500,000 pieces of new malware detected every single day. So that comes from the AV Test Institute. And hundreds of thousands of files are being affected by malware on computers and websites every single day. So, it is important. It's really hard to sort of keep on top of. It's an arms race trying to keep on top of all of these things from the malware software vendors. But it's very important to have it installed. So there's various different types of malware, such as Trojans. So Trojan, like a Trojan horse, where something is embedded, a malicious piece of software is embedded in something that looks legitimate. Wormable malware. So that's the most dangerous type of malware, really. I don't know if you remember WannaCry from a few years ago. The reason that had such an impact was because it was a wormable malware. It exploited a wormable vulnerability that essentially meant it could spread, and that's where viruses got their names from, because they were self-spreading. Not all of them are these days. There are various different techniques, but wormable malware, if there's a wormable vulnerability, it can go global, because everything's connected these days. And then ransomware, which you're probably most familiar with, which is where hackers or attackers will encrypt your files and then demand a ransom so that you can get access back to your data and your systems. The most common sources of malware infection, by far and away, it is email. So unsafe attachments on email, links to documents on the internet that contain malware. There's another type of tactic that's going on at the moment, where they will send you an email. They will tell you that, to install this piece of software, you need to run this PowerShell script. You run the PowerShell script, it downloads some software, gives them access to your computer. So social engineering in the spreading of malware is massive as well. And there's also something called living off the land types of attacks, where they will utilize the applications that are already installed on the computer, such as PowerShell, to go under the radar. So it's not essentially malware, but it's called fileless malware, where there isn't actually a file that exists. They're downloading the code using sort of commonly used tools and using those to exploit the system. And the consequences of infection, as we're all aware of, we've all heard of the Marks and Spencer's attack, the Co-op attacks, the Harrods attack. There was one for the criminal justice system recently. So huge consequences for those organizations. And as I mentioned previously, there's lots of others going on under the hood that you don't actually hear about with smaller businesses. And smaller businesses will really struggle to recover from a cyber attack. So yeah, there's a critical need for malware protection, as the previous slide illustrates. So malware on systems can compromise sensitive data, and prevention is much cheaper and easier than trying to recover. The constant updates in malware is necessary. 500,000 new malware strains detected every single day. So it's important that the antivirus signatures are updated on a daily basis. And comprehensive protection will minimize downtime and losses. And also educating users will decrease the risk of infection. There's no silver bullet. Nothing is perfect. So that defense in depth we talked about from the previous in the previous webinar. User education is a big point in that. So if something gets through all of your defenses, it's the person sitting between the keyboard and chair who has the ultimate sort of control over whether they click that link or not. So educating people is really important. So next I want to discuss free versus paid malware. So, one of the things, malware protection, one of the things I get asked very often is this particular antivirus software any good? Should I use this one or that one? Should I pay for it? Basically, because it's an arms race, they're all pretty much a much of a muchness, that they're all good in some areas, they're all bad in some areas. Essentially, they're trying to keep on top of all of these viruses that are coming out all of the time. So free malware protection will give you basic security. It will give you the antivirus signature updates, but it'll lack some of the additional features, which we'll talk about in a second. Windows and Mac all come with their own antivirus protection included. I can't speak to the efficacy of the Mac's one called XProtect. I think it's okay, but don't really have a great deal of experience with it personally. But Windows Defender is actually pretty good. So if anybody asks me if they're a residential user, a home user, what should I use for antivirus? I tend to recommend going with Windows Defender rather than downloading another third-party free antivirus solution that will just continually nag you to buy their paid features. But the benefits you get with a paid antivirus protection, so you get advanced features such as EDR, which we will discuss in a couple of slides' time. So EDR stands for Endpoint Detection and Response. You also get web protection, so it will protect you against malicious websites. So not only are there, malicious files being released all the time, malicious websites are being released all the time, whether that's a malicious website that's launched from the ground up or whether it's a legitimate website that got hacked. The web protection in the paid antivirus protection will help you, will help to protect you against those. They also offer other features like dark web scanning and VPNs and so on. So you do get more when you pay for it, as you would expect. But in the world of business, what you want to sort of think about is, do you use a consumer grade malware protection or enterprise grade malware protection? So consumer grade is basically what I was discussing on the previous slide, a paid version of antivirus that you install on one computer. So that could be Norton, AVG, and there are so many others. And they will offer basic protection, but it's suitable for home users. But there's no centralized configuration on these. You can't, centrally control how that piece of software is configured across multiple devices. And you also don't get a central view of, where that software is deployed, what detections that have happened, and so on. So where an enterprise grade anti-malware solution comes in, it provides a centralized management for multiple devices. So it allows you to control the policy across all of the systems within your environment, and also reports across all of the devices in your environment. So it gives you a visibility into threats that have been detected. It also has alerting capabilities. So if malware is detected on one of your business computers, you should get alerted to that fact to enable you to act on that. And also it offers additional security features such as device isolation, which can be very important. If an enterprise computer is infected with malware, you want to isolate that system to prevent it from, that malware from spreading anywhere else. And they also offer other features such as threat hunting. So threat hunting is the ability to look across your environment, because there's so many different strains of malware that are detected every day. Malware is only detected once it's known and once the file is accessed. So if you've got a piece of malware on a computer that was installed before it could be detected, you're not going to pick that up until that file is accessed again. Threat hunting allows you to search across your environment, across all your devices, and to identify any things that went under the radar previously. So certainly if you're running a business, you want to be going down the enterprise malware route to give you that central console and configuration, reporting, alerting, and the other advanced features. I've mentioned previously about some technology called EDR. So antivirus is no longer enough, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, not just mine. So because 500,000 viruses or pieces of malware are getting released every single day, it's impossible to keep on top of that. And that's the ones they know about. There's all the other ones that they're not aware of. It's become so easy to release new virus strains these days. All you have to do is change a full stop within the code of a piece of malware, and it will be detected as a new piece of malware, because they use hashing, which I won't go into now, to determine that, and just changing a full stop in that will change the hash, so it looks like a new piece of malware. So what endpoint detection and response does to combat this is it's looking for suspicious patterns of behavior. So it could be that a piece of malware is run, it's not detected by the antivirus because it's very new, but then it tries to do some certain things. It might try and exploit certain files on the computer, it might run certain PowerShell commands, it might run certain other commands, try to download things from the internet and so on. EDR pulls all that sort of behavior analysis together, looks for suspicious patterns of behavior, and then alerts you to that. Because it's so much more than AV alone. You shouldn't use one over the other, they should be used together, and it gives you a great deal better protection. You then have another couple of extensions beyond this. So XDR pulls together additional security information. So it not only looks at the endpoint, so that's your servers, your desktops, your laptops, it's pulling in information from other security things like firewalls, and piecing that information together and making a decision about whether something's malicious or not. And then finally, you've got MDR, which is managed detection and response. So this is outsourcing that threat detection to a third party. In that they are monitoring the solution on your behalf and alerting you to any threats that may be detected, and in some cases handling those on your behalf. So the variety of vendors provide EDR solutions. So Microsoft Defender for Business provides EDR and XDR capabilities. Sophos do. You got the ones you might have heard about recently, CrowdStrike, which otherwise a good piece of software, but apart from that bit of a PR disaster that they had, the SentinelOne, and so many more. And so again, as an enterprise, as a business, you should be looking at choosing a solution that provides at least a EDR on top of the malware protection. Just a point here, and this is specific to not specific to Cyber Essentials, but it's something that's mentioned within Cyber Essentials. So this is using application allow listing as a method of malware protection, specifically on mobile devices, although it doesn't have to be just mobiles, but it is more common and effective on mobile devices. So application allow listing basically ensures that applications within your environment are approved. So applications that can access your company data have to be authorized by the business before they can access the company data, and this reduces the malware threat. So as an example, what we do for our clients who go down the Cyber Essentials route, we will say that you can only access company data using Microsoft approved applications on a mobile phone. So you have to use the Outlook app, you have to use the OneDrive app, and so on. You can't use anything outside of that. And that simplifies the compliance and security policies, because you know which applications you're dealing with, and it reduces the malware threat, because you are only allowing applications that are trusted and known to be good to access the company data. And this is a technique that is approved by Cyber Essentials, on all types of devices, but where it's most common is on mobile devices, on iPhones and on Androids, because there isn't an approved malware protection on those types of devices from a Cyber Essentials point of view. Okay, so what Cyber Essentials says about malware protection, and this information, actually, I didn't mention it, but the previous slide where we talked about patch management, but this comes from the Cyber Essentials requirements for IT infrastructure that's published by IASME. So actually by the NCSC, actually, and that is the accompanying guide for Cyber Essentials. So it says you must make sure that malware protection is active on all devices within the scope, which we discussed previously, and each device must use at least one of the options that they list below. So anti-malware software, and it's in scope for all devices from Windows, Mac, desktop, laptop computers. So it must be updated in line with the vendor's recommendations. And in fact, it actually states when you get a bit deeper into it, it has to be updated daily. It must prevent the malware from running. It must prevent the execution of malicious code, and also must prevent connections to malicious websites. So you need to make sure that the anti-malware software that you are running can do all of those things. And then also application allowed listing, and they say for all devices that are in scope, so they don't exclude Mac OS and Windows, but it's more commonly used with mobile devices. So you only allow approved applications as restricted by code signing, and must actively approve applications before deploying the devices, and maintain a list of approved applications. Okay, so that basically takes us to the end. So in conclusion, all of these things are important. So malware protection is critically important for protecting your devices from threats, and then effective patch management will help to close down any vulnerabilities within your environment and reduces the risk of any hacks. And then, Cyber Essential certification demonstrates your ability that you're sticking to all of the known best practices, and can also, if you get a Cyber Essential certification, you get the badge, and it gives assurances to the people who you're dealing with that you take cybersecurity seriously. Okay, so just before we move on to the final slide, I've been asked to bring this to your attention. So this is the quarterly economic survey that's run every quarter by the Chamber of Commerce. If you scan that QR code, you'll be able to get to the survey, fill it out, and that provides a lot of useful information that the Chamber can then use on your behalf to and gives trends to what's going on within the Black Country. Okay, thank you. And over to you for any questions.